Where them Catholics at? Yeah. Yo, where them Catholics at? Man, what's the matter with these bishops?
And welcome back, everybody. It's Monday on the Catholic Convert Show. And it seems like we all made it through the weekend unscathed. I know Ed was limping this morning, but that's because he simply laid in the bed and didn't do anything else. That's how it is when you reach a certain age. You get injured for doing absolutely nothing.
That is true.
Look, man, I make jokes all the time about me feeling older and getting older, but I've sneezed and dislocated my shoulder. I've taken a deep breath and felt something give way in my neck. So don't think for a second that I'm just really only directing it onto you, because, man, I feel it almost every morning. I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I should probably get a new mattress. And it doesn't matter if I get a new mattress. It just, everything hurts.
Yeah, it does. You really do have no excuse, though. I mean, you are substantially younger than me. I mean, at your age, I was still climbing Everest and such like that.
Yeah, well, I've also gotten the brakes beaten off of me in the ring multiple times. Spent the majority of my life doing hard manual labor on construction sites and day working on ranches and all this other. So yeah, everything hurts.
All right, we'll give you that.
I've got the soul, personality, and humor of an 8-year-old and the body of a 93-year-old.
So it all averages out.
It all averages out. I'm actually even. What would the average on that be? 50?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Somewhere around there? Yeah, maybe. Oh, it's all good, though. I tell you what, though, my wife, she doesn't get older. Today's her birthday, and I checked her birth certificate and did the math, and she's still 29 plus shipping and handling. She doesn't seem to get older. I tried to make the joke with her plenty of times, she's like, because my wife's older than me. She's older than me by 5.5 years, but she doesn't look it. And so the running joke in our house is that she's 29 plus shipping and handling. I'll tell you what, if you want to upset your wife and that's the kind of joke that you're making, hey, you're 29 plus shipping and handling, even if she's 40, 45, 50, doesn't matter what age. You simply turn around and you say, but boy, them shipping and handling charges are a huge victim of inflation.
Yeah, that'll go over real well.
What goes over super well. Fortunately, I never make such things. And my wife is so unimpressed with my lack of talent that she doesn't even listen to my shows. She doesn't read my books. She doesn't read my articles. She doesn't even follow me on social media. So I get to get away with a lot more. Yeah, she should watch at least one episode, but she won't.
No.
She's like, my opinion of you is already set, and I don't want that to be lowered. I said, what if it increases? She goes, that's a possibility, but the likelihood is that my opinion will lower. So I'm just not going to risk it and not pay attention to anything that you do. Okay, perfect.
She's considering watching an episode or two, but it's only because she heard good things on Twitter about me.
Yeah. She was like, he sounds like the perfect grandpa.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, that's what it was, though.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really try to do anything too big. My wife and I have a system when it comes to birthdays for ourselves, because it sucks if your wife says, hey, what do you want for Father's Day, or what do you want for Christmas, what do you have for your birthday? I'm like, I make money. If I want something, I just go get it. I don't wait for a certain day of the week, right? And with her, she'll come in and she's like, hey, it's okay if I spend insert X amount of dollars. And I go, yeah, sure, go ahead. I don't know what it's for. She just, hey, I'm going to spend this. Is that cool? Yeah, it's fine. And then 2 days later, an Amazon package shows up. Yeah. So what she's done is she goes through and she on our Amazon Prime list, she'll like, okay, I'm gonna save this this for later, this for later, this for later, and this for later. So she ends up having like 300 items to choose from on the saved for later list. So when I buy her a present, I just log on, look at that list, and I just pick 2 or 3 things. I'm like, all right, that's all I got to do. I pick those 2 or 3 things off Amazon that she wants, and I end up doing the same thing. And so when it's time for me to come around, my wife will look at it, screenshot it, then go on to a different Amazon account because I get all the emails that stuff is coming. And I'm like, oh, nice. First couple of years she was doing that, I didn't tell her that I got the emails, and I'm like, I bet it's this. So how did you guess? I don't know. I just know you too well, babe. I can read your thoughts. She was she wasn't happy when she figured out the truth. She's like, you didn't tell me all these years. No, because it's cute to sit there and watch you do it. That's the greatest thing about wives, man, is they're adorable. Well, inside every wife, I don't care how old she is, inside every wife is this little girl. Because my wife gets super excited over puppies. She gets super excited over, I don't know, like these little miniatures that her and my daughter both share a love of. It's like, oh, look, it's a mini Happy Meal plastic thing. It's so cute. They lose their minds over the simplest things. And it's adorable. Even when they get mad, I took I'm not tall. Okay. I'm only 5'6", but my wife is 4'10". So when she gets mad, what I like to do is I like to take my cell phone and I hold it eye level with the video going. And as I'm holding it eye level, I look down at her while she's talking and record it. And then I play it back to her and say, this is why I think you're adorable. And so there's this downward angle of her talking to me like this.
Sure, that goes over very well.
It goes over super well.
But I'm thinking, to sum it up, you're saying that women are wonderful and God knew what he was doing.
Absolutely.
There you go.
They are absolutely wonderful. If you just regard them all as, and everything they do, even when they're mad, as cute and adorable, life is so much better. It's so much easier.
Solid advice. There.
She's like this cute little rabbit that's got an angry face on, when they're mad. It's like, ah, look at it. It's angry. Oh. I know this is going to go over super well with the women who listen to this. It's okay, though. If they get mad, they're also adorable.
So I think you've lost all the points you were making earlier in the broadcast there.
That's all right. I'm not in it to win it.
That's true. Well, obviously.
No, but I do like doing things for my wife, and she likes doing things for me. It's probably one of the greatest things that make our marriage work is I go out of my way to do everything I can for her, and she does the same for me. And it's not like, oh, well, I did this, so you better. We don't keep score or anything like that. We love doing things for each other. And I get excited on, for example, Father's Day, when I see the excitement in her and the excitement in my kids when they're like, oh, we got dad something. Oh, he's going to love it. I get more excited about wanting to see their reactions when I like the thing.
Yeah.
Than I do about, hey, I wonder what's in this bag.
Well, because that's what it's all about. Actually, it's great to see the joy and the happiness in others. And then that by default gives you joy and happiness. As opposed to someone who's very selfish and just wants others to make them happy all the time. Far too many of those people out there.
Well, it's because we've got this overburdening sense of hedonistic nihilism in society today that is probably the easiest way to sum up secular culture. I can't remember exactly where I heard it. I know the coin was termed in the 1950s, the 1960s, mainly on the old radio show. So give you an example, like War of the Worlds
Mhm.
was a good example of this kind of radio show, but they called it the theater of the absurd.
Oh yeah.
And what it was kind of like this mockery of existentialism,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it was a reinforcement of existentialism, where everything is gray, nothing has meaning. We're all just meat sacks floating on a ball of rock and stardust, baby, kind of thing, right? And the absolute absurdity of some of these theatrical performances, and I say theatrical, but I also am including radio.
Mhm.
They kind of made light of it all, as if to make it a little more bearable.
Yeah.
Right? We can't help but laugh that we're but players in the theater of the absurd, where everyone is a jester, nothing is serious, and everything is collapsible and recyclable. Yeah. And that's what I think about when I see, like some of those red pill guys on
Mhm.
Twitter, right?
Yeah.
You have to demean her in public if you want her to like you. Okay. And you can't tell if people are joking or not. What was that? What's that? Poe's law is the absolute absurdity that you can't even tell if it's satire or not, because it's gotten so close to reality. So the theater of the absurd really does encapsulate the culture that we're living in.
It does.
And when that happens, nothing, even the sacred, is kept sacred anymore. We saw an example of that with the Olympic opening ceremonies.
Mhm.
An absolute mockery of the Last Supper. And then they kept it there until they received huge backlash for it. Then they started trying to pull all the images and the videos off the internet. They made copyright claims whenever they see it, doing everything they can to scrub the images.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I uploaded those videos to the blockchain. They're not ever disappearing. I'm sorry, Olympics, but as you have sown, so shall you reap. We'll say that.
Mhm.
But it did get a lot of mixed emotions. A lot of people were, oh, it's just for show, it's no big deal. And those people are the prime example of the theater of the absurd. And then you had those that were, well, it's just the way people are these days. It's common to see these kind of grossly offensive attacks on faith and of the sacred. So why should I even react anymore? It's kind of like if you're a homicide detective, your first one, you're throwing up when you walk into a crime scene, and by your 15th, 16th year on the force, you're walking around eating like cold spaghetti and meatballs as you stand amongst a pile of bodies, and you don't even care. You get desensitized to it, right?
Mhm.
And then there were those that, of course, were well justified, myself, yourself included, that were just kind of overwhelmed with this righteous indignation, as of, to quote the famous little Norwegian boy, Greta Thunberg, how dare you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it got me thinking. Some people thought that Christians, and even, look, there were plenty of Muslims, non-Christians, people of the Jewish faith, that all got equally offended by that
Sure.
grotesque depiction of the Last Supper.
Yeah.
Because we've reached this point in our secular society where nothing has meaning, so it's okay to mock and make fun of everything. And to those people, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
It's got to be an absolute sad existence, especially for the people that were directly involved with the performance and the planning of that ceremony, because they can sit there and claim to all the magazines they want, well, we didn't mean to offend anyone. You absolutely did.
That was the whole
Okay.
point.
Look, we know one guy has balls because he left them out next to that little girl in the picture.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go bleach your eyes. But if all of you involved would just cop to it and show the testicular fortitude
Thanks.
and say, yes, we did it. We meant to offend because we wanted to. I would actually respect that position more, even though
Absolutely.
I kind of want to kick the teeth out of your mouth. I would respect that position more. But it was once the outrage came, once the backlash came, everybody started trying to save face. Well, that's not what we meant. We meant to promote unity. Okay, sure. Sure. You know what? You were promoting unity the same way a KKK rally does.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we didn't think it was offensive. Sure. I'll tell you what, let me go remake a movie about Emmett Till and put it what horrible people would consider a humorous spin on it. Right? Let's do it like a parody, like those scary movie parodies. Oh man, I didn't mean to offend anyone. I'm trying to promote unity. Yeah, that's not going to go over too well. What I just don't appreciate how they try to, well, we didn't mean anything bad by it. Yes, you did. Just admit it. If you admit it, I would actually respect that more than you did it. Now you try to backtrack. Now you try to save face. Well, it was never intended to be a depiction of the Last Supper. Really? So why was your centerpiece, the Gorlock, the Destroyer of the Worlds look-alike, in the center of the image on Instagrams, calling it the gay New Testament?
Exactly.
Just admit it. Just admit it.
Yeah.
I would respect you more. Now, some people have said, well, Jeff, your reaction to this is too overzealous. Okay, well, my counter to that is yours isn't zealous enough.
Mm.
I can come down a couple of notches, but you need to get off the floor.
Yeah.
If you don't see it for what it is, then what makes you think that you wouldn't do such a thing and think it was funny?
Yeah. And when did this come about that we're not supposed to respond or react to extremely offensive things? I mean, you look at our Lord and Savior as an example, and I am in no way comparing myself to Christ, but when he saw the money changers inside the temple, I mean, was his reaction over the top? Was that way too much? Did he go too far beyond? And
he fashioned a whip,
yeah.
And he beat people across the face and back, drove them out of the temple, and turned over their tables.
Yeah, and they were selling stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah, so like I would agree that if anything, I think that the reaction was not strong enough. And you're right. I can't stand this thing where they say, "Oh well, we didn't mean to offend." Just like those Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence or whatever they're called a couple of summers ago when they did a recreation of
at the Dodger Stadium.
did a recreation of the crucifixion, and they crucified a guy in a dress. I mean, and that was supposed to be it was just supposed to be funny. It was supposed to be artistic, whatever. No, it was neither one of those.
But then they turn around and say, "Well, we didn't want to offend any Christians."
Exactly.
It had nothing. There was nothing biblical about it. No biblical relation at all. Like, oh yeah, it's the same thing.
What's that?
Sure.
What's that? Yeah, what's that saying?
You're taking a leak on my back and calling it rain.
Exactly. I was going to say, don't spit in my face and say it's raining, but same idea.
Yeah, same idea.
Yeah.
But when people say, well, we shouldn't be reacting like this at all, Bishop Barron did a video on it.
It was great.
And he called it out. He goes, And listen, I'm going to say something that might sound offensive to a lot of Christians out there,
Oh boy.
but it needs to be said. This includes him. This includes Bishop Barron. His response was, why won't they try this with Islam? And he turned around and said, we all know the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, as right as he may be, because I remember the Charlie Hebdo thing when two people went in there when they were doing a mockery, a cartoon contest of Muhammad.
Yeah.
Two people went in there with AK-47s and opened fire. I'm not advocating for that.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating for that response, but it's because of that response and because of the overwhelming violence that has faced France over these last 2 years with their constant influx of immigration. There's a specific group of people, and they just happen to be Islamic immigrants, that do not play when you mock their faith.
Mm.
And rightfully so. So as for the anger and the contempt that they felt about the Charlie Hebdo, I can empathize with that anger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to condone the violent response to it, but I can empathize with that anger. Right. Yeah. And I can empathize with the impulse to go and do that. I can empathize with that feeling. I am not empathizing or condoning acting upon that impulse. Absolutely. Right. I do want to make that clear. But here's the thing. When Christianity is mocked, when Christ himself is mocked openly, mm-hmm. If you're a Christian and your first reaction is, well, they wouldn't do that with Jews. Well, they wouldn't do that with Muslims. You're part of the problem because you're trying to rely on some whataboutism as a defense of our faith. Mm. We don't need Muslims or Jews or Hindus or anybody else to fight our battles for us. We can fight them ourselves. I'm not saying go out there and physically hurt people. But if your first reaction when Christ is mocked is, they wouldn't try that with Islam, I wonder why. How about this? Because when they do it to us, there are no consequences. Mm-hmm. When they do it to us, we don't look, and people can cry and say, well, you're just like a liberal. Go play in traffic, pal. I'm okay with cancel culture as long as it's as long as it's equitable for both mm-hmm. sides. There should absolutely be social consequences for mm-hmm. when you do something in society that is not acceptable. Yeah. If you do something that is not acceptable in what is supposed to be a civilized society, there should be consequences. But it's freedom of speech. I didn't say the government should intervene. I said people should. Unless you act and you want to say the free speech thing again, I promise you, the Constitution, the First Amendment only applies to governmental interference and punishment for speaking out about anything. It means the government can't punish you for it. Doesn't mean you can't walk down the street, say something bad about someone's mother, and not get your teeth knocked out for it. There are consequences. And, you know, so I was looking at C-Spire. C-Spire is the 6th largest telecommunication company in the U.S. They pulled all of their advertising and sponsorship from the Olympics. Mm-hmm. It was after that the apologies started coming because that hit them where it hurt.
Exactly.
That hit them where it hurt. But their apology wasn't even an apology. They didn't say, hey, we're sorry. We did this ugly, grotesque thing. They said, we're sorry you got offended.
Yeah.
That's like me punching you in the mouth and say, I'm sorry your jaw broke. That's not an apology.
No.
Now, everyone is still saying, well, we should still support the athletes who trained their lives to get to this moment and watch the Olympics. No, we shouldn't. No, we shouldn't. Well, what if nobody watches them? They can still go compete.
Yeah.
Nothing stopping them from running in circles or swimming or jumping if the TV's not on.
It's like that. If a tree falls in the woods and nobody is there to see it, does it still fall? Kind of thing.
Yeah, it still fell. They can come home and be like, I got a medal.
If you're the
mom can tell
fastest
you
guy in the
congrats.
world and nobody sees that you're fastest guy in the world, you're still the fastest guy in the world. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't change.
But that's what we've gotten to, though. We have to make these concessions because the people that want to mock our faith, the people that want to just attack dignity and decency altogether, say, well, you can't do anything about it because other people would not have the same, exposure on TV if you boycotted it. I don't care.
Yeah. And I love when they talk about how, well, it was all done in the name of acceptance and love and just showing the world that there's such a variety of people out there and they all need to be accepted and loved. No, they don't actually. If any of the folks that I saw involved in that fiasco, if I saw you walking around my local shopping market, I wouldn't be very accepting of you. I'm sorry, I just wouldn't. I'd ignore you. I wouldn't, engage in conversation with you, but I'm not going to be saying, oh, how wonderful that you're a woman with a beard or a man in a dress or you're going to mock God and mock Jesus. I'm not going to, I don't have to accept that. We're so tired of this. You have to accept everybody. That was what
no, you don't. Certain things are unacceptable, and it upsets people when you make that known.
Exactly.
I've got a buddy who said, I'm too zealous to see it. I'm too zealous because I don't understand that Christ would have welcomed those people to his table. Of course he would.
Yeah.
Christ would welcome those people. And you know what? I prayed for every single one of those people.
Yes.
Because I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
And there's a human side of me that really just wants to go ballistic on them with a bat.
Yeah.
I won't. But it doesn't mean the temptation is still there. And it doesn't mean that feeling isn't justified. Because I'm really sick and tired of these double standards where we've got people getting 3 years in prison for leaving tire marks on some piece of trash tranny flag on the street. But we're supposed to be accepting of it when people turn around and mock Christianity. Yeah. Why? We can leave tire marks on your religious symbol that's on public property.
Oh, and people
shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, people made that comparison this past week with all those bizarre protests that went on when Netanyahu was here in the States, and how I can't even count the number of American flags that were burned last week.
Yeah.
And the number of monuments.
It's okay for you to burn American flags, but it's not okay for me to leave tire marks on a poorly painted sidewalk, or worse, the street where cars are already driving over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I
go to prison for that.
Yeah, I'm not
protected class, huh? It's a protected class, sure. But listen, Catholicism, Christianity as a whole, has been attacked every single day for the last 2,000 years.
Sure.
When I see these people that did that grotesque mockery of the Last Supper, I don't picture it as something brand new or uncommon.
No, it's been done.
But But what I will equate it to are the demons that possessed the swine and ran themselves off a cliff. because that's what they're doing. They're running themselves off a cliff. They are hastening their own doom.
Yeah.
And I pray they stop and turn around.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't, they're destroying themselves of their own volition.
Sure.
And people may hear this and go, well, Jeff, you're transphobic. Trust me, I'm not scared of some dude in a skirt.
No.
Okay. I'm not. What I am worried about is if this is more widely accepted, how long is it? Because we already see this happening in a lot of places. How long is it until it's widely accepted that they come onto our church properties
Mm-hmm.
and they start destroying and defacing church property? How about when they walk into a house of worship in the middle of mass and decide to make a scene and disrupt the service right in the middle of the consecration of gifts? And no one's allowed to say anything because we're supposed to be accepting of them. We absolutely are not supposed to be accepting of them. It is not even a Christian value to be accepting of them. We are supposed to love them. Well, I can love a drug addict and not accept the use of his drugs and his self-destructing behavior. I can love a drug addict and not provide him with needles.
Mm-hmm.
People have this, and you know what? I blame George W. Bush because children were in fact left behind.
Yeah.
Okay? Tolerance, acceptance, and love are three different things.
Yeah, we lumped them all together.
We need to bring back the Hooked on Phonics commercials because they would seriously help.
They would.
And I know this sounds like I'm angry, and I'm not. I'm more frustrated that there's so many people out there that will see this and hear this and say, well, you shouldn't be offended by it. Fine. If I shouldn't be offended by that, then don't be offended when I tell you that there is zero salvation and you are doomed to the fires of hell outside the Catholic Church. Don't be offended. Accept it.
Well, no, you bring up a great point there because it seems like we're supposed to accept things based on who is saying them and who's offering that information. And so where you and I are not allowed to be offended by the weird, crazy crap that goes on in the secular world, we're supposed to be accepting of all that and not offended by any of that. But you're right, because you and I both seen that. If you're on social media and you make a statement like that about the Catholic faith, oh man, you better retract that. You can't say that. That's not true. That's
I had so many people mad at me the
Right?
other day for that. I'm like, okay, you're mad. Go see a therapist. It's fine. You know.
Well, listen, but Jeff, I would say, listen, this is my feeling about this. And you say you don't necessarily have to be angry about what took place, but I'm almost a little bit angry about the lack of response by some people, because if you are calling yourself a Christian and if you see that mockery that took place on Friday night and your response is, oh, who cares? What's the big deal? Let them do or say what they're going to say. My response would be, you need to re-examine your faith, or actually whether or not you have it. Because I don't know about you, but
You need to re-examine your jockey shorts to see if there's anything in there.
you do. But I know as part of, listen, when I became baptized, I took on an obligation to defend the faith.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? To be willing to even lay down my life for the faith. And you're telling me that, oh, but when this kind of nonsense happens, I'm supposed to say, don't worry about it. It's okay.
I can't say anything because my boss might see my tweet.
Exactly.
And then I'll get fired for being intolerant and or have to sit through more HR PowerPoint slideshows. And I don't want that. I don't want to get in trouble. Okay, mister, I will lay down my life for Jesus. You won't lay down your job for him, though, huh?
Exactly. Cool. Well, you know.
Well, I'm just saying.
No,
You know,
I hear you.
Convictions mean absolutely nothing if there are not consequences for sticking to them.
Well, people always, they offer things that they know are never going to happen. Like you would say, well, you know, I would take a bullet for you. to someone who you really don't plan on doing much for at all. Well, what is this opportunity going to arise for you to take a bullet for your next door
Depends.
neighbor?
Do you live in Chicago?
Well, okay, assuming you don't live in Chicago. So just say,
assuming you don't live in Chicago or
yeah,
Atlanta or LA, there's a
But you
chance
say-
that this will never happen.
but you say, "Oh, I would take I love you so much, I'd do anything. I'd take a bullet for you." And then that same person says, "Oh, would you mind running to the store and getting a few things for me?" And you're like, "I don't know if I can do that."
Well, see,
It's kind of above and beyond.
I can understand that. When I told my wife that I would do absolutely anything for her, what I meant was I'll fight dragons.
Exactly.
Listen, I'll run into burning buildings.
Yeah.
I'll fight off highwaymen because those still exist. But I ain't doing the dishes.
See, that's what I'm saying. we offer these things that seem extraordinary on the surface, but actually quite literally mean nothing.
Right. But listen, like I said, convictions mean absolutely nothing unless they have consequences that come with sticking to them.
Yeah. That's true.
They don't mean anything. I am so devout and I go to mass 7 times a week and I read the liturgy of the hours every day and I do 14 rosaries a day. Awesome. Someone walks up and mocks Christ and you don't defend it?
Yeah. Well, it's a whole
Okay.
thing. Yeah, you go back to James, and when he's trying to make the point, and he says, if you're walking down the street and you come upon someone who is hungry and naked, and you say to them, "Hey, brother, be well. God loves you. Have a wonderful day," and you just keep on going. What have you done for them? You've done nothing for
Thanks.
them.
I'm still naked and hungry.
Yeah, exactly right. And of course then he goes on to say, faith without works is dead, blah blah blah. But I mean, but the point is there, and it's still true today that all these useless platitudes that people throw out, these things that people say to seem like they care and that they're involved and that they love everybody, but then they do nothing, absolutely nothing to back it up. And that's why we have this world that we have today. And so if if you want stuff like that nonsense that took place on the opening games to stop, you've got to you can't just whisper to your neighbor, "Boy, that was so disrespectful." No, you've got to do something.
But you know what you can do? You can stop giving money to people that hate you.
Right. That's where it starts. Yeah.
You can stop giving money to people that hate you. You can start only supporting people and businesses and companies and media outlets that share your values.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more you keep giving money and attention to these people that hate you, want nothing to do with you, and want to see you and everything you stand for destroyed, it's like feeding your own enemy out of your supplies.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. But listen, I'll also go ahead and leave the caveat here that I'm not saying lose your mind and get overworked and become hyper reactive about every little thing, because then you become a raving lunatic. You're like that guy on social media that just starts screaming, "Wake up, educate yourselves." And he just does that in all of the, everybody's replies. And you're like, "Wake up to what? And what about what?" Well, okay, I'm awake. Now what? Just wake up, brother. It's coming. And then they run away.
You've seen my tweets, I see.
Yeah, I've seen all of your tweets. And the strongly worded letters that were returned to sender.
Exactly.
But look,
choose your battles, right? Choose your battles.
Right. Choose your battles. Okay. Don't be this hyper reactive about everything. Yes, it's common, but you don't have to be silent, meek little scared mouse about it either. Well, if I speak up, someone will think I'm intolerant. Who cares what they think?
Yeah,
people will call me names, and you'll probably get called worse by better. Who cares? Like, I receive death threats. People send me pictures of my house in my DMs with death threats.
Yeah.
But you're worried about what? You're worried about, oh, my boss is going to think I'm insensitive, or someone's going to turn me into HR. Oh, I'm going to lose my job. You know what? I lost my job over refusing to wear a mask when it was my only source of income.
Mm.
Didn't care. I stood on my principles.
Mm.
Well, that's not realistic. Oh, really? It's not realistic. I got 9 kids. And I still said no.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, hey, everybody should be like me, because I get it. Some things you just can't do. But you know what? What you can do is a lot more than just complain about it or tell people who are voicing valid concerns and opinions about things like this to be quiet. You shouldn't do that. Turn the other cheek. You don't have but 2 cheeks. Both cheeks were turned in, like, I don't know, 34 AD.
Yeah.
Like, you can only turn your cheek so much. And it doesn't mean that you still can't call out heresy. That doesn't mean you can't call out blasphemy. It doesn't mean you can't call out an injustice. It doesn't mean you can't call out a wrong. Christ did not defend himself, his own corporeal being on the cross. But while on the cross, when the authorities tried to attack the truths that he had taught, he spoke up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and people, I partially blame this kind of mentality over this hyper feminization of Jesus over the last 1700 years.
Yeah.
They keep constantly trying to make Jesus this soft, feminine. Oh, I'm a hippie. What? That is not Christ. Have you seen the kinds of animals and wild beings that roamed the air, the area and the regions in which Christ traveled? I'm talking lions, I'm talking tigers, and I'm talking bears. Oh my. Like, Judean lions are a thing, bro. Or were a thing.
Yeah.
He was a carpenter.
Yeah. Although they make it look like he had a weekly Petty.
I promise you, he wasn't going to Home Depot.
Yeah.
Chances are Christ was jacked. And I don't mean Mr. Olympian, all cut, but there's 0 chance he wasn't strong.
Yeah.
There's 0 chance if somebody did come and physically attack him that he wasn't capable of fighting them off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have any idea how good a physical shape you had to have been in to be a carpenter in like 30 AD? I got to chop this tree down. I got to get this drawing blade, and then I'm going to have to make all of my lumber,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can build it. He wasn't weak.
No.
He wasn't soft. He wasn't effeminate. Christ was a man. There's no way he walked that long with that kind of job before he began his ministry and wasn't farm boy strong.
Yeah. Any other issue?
Everyone's saying, well, he was this soft hippie who just loved everyone. Really? Beating people with whips, flipping over their tables, which I'm guarantee you, those were not IKEA tables. They were heavy. They were heavy. And he's fashioning a whip out of reeds and leather. Look, that man had some calloused hands.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention the fact that he carried his cross.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of y'all can't carry groceries.
Yeah.
He carried his cross before he fell, and it was given to, what's his name?
Simon and Cyrene.
Yes, Simon. I was going to, I want to say Simon, but I didn't want to be wrong. After receiving a beating that none of you guys could handle. But y'all want to think that Christ was this effeminate, soft person. He was not. He was a masculine man.
He drank no soy.
He drank no soy. He could open his own pickle jar.
Whoa, that's tough.
Very tough. But the point is, he knew what was coming.
Yeah.
He knew his own death was coming. And he had every single capability of preventing it.
Oh, yeah.
And he chose not to because he spoke the truth. If you're afraid to speak the truth, then you're not Christ-like at all. You're hiding. You are hiding.
Yeah, we've done such a disservice over these last how many years of portraying Christ, as you're mentioning, of this guy who just went town to town saying, "I love you all, I love you all, and I don't
Here's
care
some
what
fish.
you do. You know, here's some fish, and just you can do whatever you'd like, you can say whatever you like, you can live any way you like, and I will love you, and all will be well, and you will all one day be with me in paradise." He never said that. You can live any way you wanted to, but all bets are off as to where you're going to wind up. It's the same thing today.
If you want to emulate Christ, then you can't be afraid of speaking the truth because you're afraid of consequences. Do you think Jesus cared if people thought he was intolerant?
No.
No. The Pharisees hated him because he called them down right off of their little ivory holier-than-thou towers and said, "No, you're wrong." While they had elevated themselves on pedestals as they walked around the temples, reciting all of the ancient scriptures and reciting all of the ancient prayers, and look how holy I am. He called them out, and it upset them, even though they had power and influence.
Hmm.
And he died for it.
No.
But you're afraid of what? People thinking something about you. You're afraid of speaking up because you don't want to rock the boat. The boat can rock. Get your ass out of the boat, stand on those waves next to Christ, and you won't sink.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Yeah, that's we all have so many people suffer from that thought of I need to be accepted. I need to be. It's so important to me that everyone accepts me and everything. So in order to do that, they just go along with the crowd. Nobody states what they truly feel. Nobody states what they truly believe. Nobody calls out wrong when they say it because they're so afraid that they'll be cast aside. Nobody's going to want to hang out with them. Nobody's going to want to be with them. No one's going to want to have a beer with them if you call out these things. Well, and again, the truth is the truth, whether you stand up for it or not. And that's just a choice you're making. So you might as well be on the side of truth, I would say. It'll end better for you at some point.
Yeah. Very simple. But of course, it requires you to stand up. It kind of makes me wish we still had the tradition, and they still do it in some places. The confirmation slap.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they don't do it in the Byzantine rite because slapping a small child is
The baby would be very bad.
it's bad optics.
It really is.
But when you were confirmed by the bishop used to slap you across the face. And it wasn't really a light slap. It wasn't hard. He wasn't trying to knock you out like Ivan Drago.
No.
But it wasn't a light slap either. It wasn't some little, you got slapped. And it was because at your moment of confirmation, you are a soldier in God's army. You are going to be hit. You're going to be attacked. And that slap is a reminder that you can go ahead and start getting ready for it and start getting used to it.
Yeah. But it's a great, you say, because we are all soldiers for Christ, or theoretically the soldier for Christ. What soldier in a war is going to say to the enemy, oh, go ahead, overrun our cities. Oh, take whatever you'd like. Do whatever you'd like. Abuse us. Just go ahead. Who's going to know? You're going to stand up and you're going to fight the way you were taught to preserve your country, your city, your town, your way of life, your possessions, all those things. But yet we don't do that for our faith. We don't treat it that way. You should be able to,
Right.
You should be willing to do whatever it takes to defend your faith.
And before this starts to sound like, ranting internet tough guy rhetoric, I want to make the clarification. What does it mean to stand up for your faith? What does it mean to fight back? Am I saying, well, we should just go out there and start fighting people? No, I'm not saying that. But there are a lot of Catholics out there that are very, very passive in their faith. We talked about this last week about people complain that, well, I raised my children in the church and they still left the church and I don't know why. Well, Christ wasn't that important. Christ was not the central focal point of your entire day in your home outside the church walls. It was a Sunday obligation that you drug your kids to. And you wonder why they had no interest in the faith once they became adults. Well, I got better things to do on Sunday, like sleeping off this hangover. That's how you fight back, is you change that culture. You build an unapologetically Catholic culture in your homes. Because I don't care what you do at your parish. Your main and primary parish are the four walls where you and your family lay your head at night. Make Christ the culture there, and that will be spread outside those walls. And you do it unapologetically. And do not be afraid to speak up, regardless of what some nut job in a dress says. It is what it is.
It is.
But Ed, can you run through what you brought in 7 minutes? Because I just
Oh,
realized the time.
I can do it in 7 seconds. Because
I'm not going to comment on that.
Well, because I had something ready for Friday, and I had something light and airy because it was Friday. And I don't want to leave it on a heavy note for the weekend. So we'll just use that. And you remember a few weeks back, and I was actually thinking about this. It's amazing that, what is this, the 63rd episode, 62nd, somewhere around there. So it's amazing that I've brought, and we had a couple guests on. So I've brought somewhere around like 58 to 60 items on the air already. And there's no end in sight to what I could bring up here. But anyway, I digress. But a few weeks ago, I brought up that Marvel comic of St. Francis, because I thought that was such a cool thing that they made St. Francis a superhero. And of course, I may have mentioned at the time that they also did one for John Paul II. They did one for Mother Teresa because of the success of the St. Francis one. Well, so today we brought the life of Pope John Paul II. And this is nice. How many times are you going to see a comic book that has a Pope and Spider-Man on the cover? How often does that happen? Not very many times. But this one came out in 1982. And it's actually kind of interesting because it almost didn't happen. They agreed to do it because of the popularity of the St. Francis one. But while they were putting this together in 1981, you have to think what was going on in the world, especially in the world of Pope John Paul II. Well, while they were putting this together, there was the assassination attempt on his life in 81. And then also at this time, they were getting a lot of information from people who knew Pope John Paul II very well, and those people lived in Poland. And at this time, Poland was under martial law because of civil unrest. You remember the things with the Solidarność and all those organizations, and everything that was going on in Poland. So they were very close to putting a halt to producing this because it was just becoming too time-consuming, difficult, a lot of money getting pumped into it. But what pulled it out was that the Paulist Press, which you've heard of Paulist Press, they're a Catholic publishing company. They actually went to them and said, listen, typically when you run these kind of special magazines, you sell about 150,000 or so copies. Paulist Press said, we will buy the first 250,000 copies. Well, because of that, the presses started running. Paulist Press actually bought 250,000 copies of these, distributed them throughout the world, through various sources, through Knights of Columbuses and through churches and parishes and dioceses and things like that. And it wound up actually selling quite a bit more copies than that. So there it is, the 1982 Marvel comic of Pope John Paul II. And it's, look at that, right on the back of a comic book, you've got the papal seal there. So it's good stuff. And look, they've got actual photos of the guy there with a kid.
Very cool. Very
cool stuff. I love this stuff. But that's what we have for today. Light and airy after the topic that we had going into this. But what a world, right? 1982, we're producing major companies like Marvel are producing comic books about saints, and go forward to 2024. And you've got Olympic committees mocking Christ, the Last Supper, and the Eucharist. I mean, times have changed just a tad in 40 years.
Just a bit.
Just a bit. Yeah. Anyway.
Not much, though. Not much. I think the biggest change is probably we got rid of the rotary phone.
That's well, I still have mine, but
that's because it's too heavy to lift at your age.
You remember when you walk if you need a brand new TV, you walk into Walmart now, and for $350, you can walk out with a 72-inch TV that you're carrying by yourself in one hand. And meanwhile, back when I was a kid,
you had a 19-inch TV that required hand trucks.
Oh my God.
It's because everything was made of lead
and hernia surgeries. The last one of those real kind of TVs I had, when it busted, I literally had to dismantle it. I had to take it apart and take it out of the house in pieces because I could not, in any way, shape, or form, get it out of the house. It was so heavy.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
It's amazing.
Box frame TVs.
Yeah.
Oh, man, those were so heavy. And we you know what? I don't think we ever got rid of those, of the one that we had at my house as a kid. When it stopped working, we put like a tablecloth over it and used it as a TV.
It was now furniture. Right.
It is now a shelf. It's not going anywhere.
Those are the days.
You got 3 TVs stacked up on each other because they just got progressively lighter.
Exactly. Oh,
once it gets high enough, you just rearrange the furniture and you turn that into a projector stand for the projector TV across the other one.
Right. For the holidays, you decorate the whole stack, make it a tree.
Oh, perfect.
It'd be awesome.
You got the static, as the star.
Yep.
Yeah. Perfect.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm gonna go and do some birthday stuff with my wife, who is now once again 29 plus shipping and handling.
Exactly.
And be back tomorrow. Maybe something cool will happen between now and then, and we can talk about it. If not, you're stuck listening to me and Ed. It's okay though.
Babbling on incoherently.
But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. And as always, thank you for sharing this with your most adamant anti-Catholic friends, because they need to hear it. And of course, the more they hate it, the more they fuss about it, the more they share it, and the more no money that me and Ed make.
Woohoo!
But all right, y'all have a good one.
God bless everybody.